Dr. David Kessler has led prestigious medical schools. He is known and beloved for his landmark work on HIV and AIDS, for taking on the tobacco industry. He was the longtime commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration. During COVID, here on this show in particular, you may remember, he became a familiar, even reassuring voice during a very deeply scary time. Now, with what appears to be the wholesale gutting of the country's health infrastructure currently underway and as yet poorly understood, there's only one person I really wanted to talk to. Joining us now is Dr. David Kessler, former FDA commissioner, former chief science officer for the Biden administration's COVID-19 response. Dr. Kessler, it's really nice to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
What's your reaction to what we know thus far of these cuts?
I think they're endangering the lives of all Americans. You alluded to it. In those nights during COVID that you had me on, I mean, there were some dark nights, deaths, 3,000, 4,000. You even mentioned one of those nights, you were on the ledge,
Yeah.
right? My job, I was able to walk you back a little.
Yeah.
I was able to say, we were able to say, it's going to be okay. The reason I was able to do that, because we had people like Peter Marks, Julie Turney, we had people who had expertise that allowed us to get through this, the right drugs, the right vaccines, the right doses. They were fired. We are less safe today because of these cuts that have happened the last several days. I always thought that things were fixable, right? You could fix things. I am very concerned that if these cuts are not rescinded, these will have effect for decades.
You think that the way they have done these cuts, the people they've cut, the number of jobs they've cut, potentially have created a crisis in which we can't ever have these institutions back at strength?
I think we're very close to that. I wonder whether the president really even knows, the extent of what has been done. Remember that night that he was taken by helicopter to Walter Reed? He was having difficulty breathing. He had COVID. He was very sick, right? He was given 2 monoclonal antibodies, right? He referenced those as miracles. They were cures. All of a sudden he got better. I mean, he could have died, but for those drugs. Dr. Peter Stein's office made available those drugs to the president and to thousands of others. Peter Stein was fired, was let go. I don't think the president knows that. Someone needs to walk into the Oval Office and say, Mr. President, we just fired the person who may have saved your life.
From what you know of, part of the difficulty of covering this story is that it is hard to understand the scale of what's happened and to contextualize it to understand, A, because nothing like this has ever happened before, but also because there's been no announcement of what they have done other than this sort of pablum from the HHS secretary, forgive me, where he's talking about the revolution has begun and all of this other non-specific stuff. From what you know of who has been fired and what offices have been dismantled, does it say anything to you about there being a strategy at work? Is this the wish list of some right-wing group that's always wanted to destroy U.S. health infrastructure? I mean, is there any pattern here that you can discern to what they've done?
It is devastating, but it is haphazard.
Oh.
It is thoughtless, and it is chaotic. I don't think they fully understand what they are done. Look, bad stuff is going to happen on their watch that they're going to have to deal with. And they're not going to be equipped to do that. That's what's going to happen. We have to be careful, though. This is not just about FDA, or NIH or CDC. I mean, you see what's going on in the universities. We have to be very careful. I mean, the thing that has made, America great, that it's made America competitive, there's a lot of things. But the biomedical infrastructure, right? The advances, The reason we are able to live long and productive lives, right, are because of the investment, not because we're smarter today, but because of the investment we made 50, 75 years ago, and that's being destroyed. And it's across the board. We have to rescind these cuts. Enough is enough.
When you think about the kinds of things that are going to come over the transom to America's health officials now, the kinds of things that they're going to need to respond to that you say they will not have the people in place to respond to adequately. What kind of things are those? What are the things they're not foreseeing that they're going to need these people they've just fired?
Probably the two most knowledgeable people about bird flu, gone. People who look at the toxins that are in our food, those programs are gutted. The people who are going to just answer the phones, right, to make sure that the next emergency use of that drug, like the president got, they're not there to answer those calls anymore, to make that available to the average citizen, right? The president has to be informed of what the extent of these cuts are, and we have maybe a week, before this becomes beyond fixable.
David Kessler, former commissioner of the FDA, chief science officer for the Biden administration's COVID-19 response, and friend to this show in many ways. Sir, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be right back.